some representatives, so you're getting an agenda. It may change a little bit, and when we start the event, House protocol is that a legislator, we have 3 of them here.
I'm going to talk about that.
They're gonna do a little thing, and then we'll get into the program. But let's get these things out. We've got some signs that we made up, and also there's an agenda and the parents' rights resolution. So I'm going to let Terry, Senator William from my county, my great senator, do his thing, and we'll start right after that. Thank you very much.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Senator Terry Williams from Rutland District. I'm on the Education Committee and Natural Resources and Energy. I got a little prepared script that I need to say so that everybody hears this. Basically, House is a public building. Everybody is welcome to attend this meeting. And I'd like to share a few announcements about expectation for today's meeting before we get started. So all are welcome. Everybody gets a chance to speak. We ask that all guests remain seated and refrain from any disruptive conduct. And we have a panel of speakers, and we'll also give an opportunity for others to speak if they so request it. And that's about it. And I'm going to turn it over to Greg Thayer, who invited me to come here. Greg's a friend and of many. And I'm sure he won't disappoint you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So I'm going to get started. First and foremost, I'd like us all to rise and thank our Creator and do a pledge. And maybe I can get my good friend from Windham County to lead us in the pledge. But first, I just want to ask our Heavenly Father to thank us for gathering today. Thank all of you folks for coming here and safe travels. And we want to say thank you to Agatha and her staff here at the Capitol, who were very professional and very helpful. Thank you, the Sergeant of Arms and the Capitol Police Chief Polway, Officer Polway. Thank you all. We appreciate it. So, Nancy, would you lead us in the pledge? Where's the flag?
Yeah, well, no flag here. Who's wearing a flag?
I have a little flag on my Vermont.
I went on the TV.
We don't have time, so we're already running behind schedule.
Let's just pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all for being here. Again, I'm Gregory Thayer, founder and principal at Vermonters for Vermont. It's funny because in the past when I've done events, the media would ask me how many people do I have in my organization. And I'm pretty frank, I have 634,000 people because I'm trying to reach every Vermonter with our message. And so with that said, the welcome, you're here, and that's great. So Vermonters for Vermont is an educational platform. Started in December of 2018, and back in 2021, I decided to get a little more involved and get deep with the school issues, seeing what was going on with critical race theory. I started doing town halls across the state, and we did probably, Martha, 7 or 8, I guess. And then we hooked up with our good friend Ed Wheeler. From over here, he wrote a symposium on Americanism, Marxism, and Martha and I helped facilitate it around the state. And I believe Ed is still doing some of those events. So it's real important to learn this stuff and learn, the origins and how it's evolved throughout the years. So since that time, and when I ran for lieutenant governor in 2022, I heard from thousands and thousands and thousands of Vermonters about the problems in school. I still get emails and messages, had a couple yesterday, about what's going on in our public school system. So I decided to write this initiative, this resolution, and I wrote it with the help of a couple templates from Florida and Virginia. And then I spoke with Governor Youngkin's people And then I spoke with and met with the folks from the Parental Rights Foundation outside of DC who vetted it very succinctly. Our plan was to get it into the local school boards because that we felt was the real effect on families and people being disenchanted, if you will. And since then, I've decided to come forward to the State House because we all know we had a great election, and and the governor now has some veto power. But we also know that we have 20 more House members and 6 or 7 more senators. So we have a better and a stronger voice. And so we're looking at bringing that to the House. But after this meeting, there's a couple of us, John Clark, Marie from Speak Vermont, Martha from Advocates of Vermont, myself, probably a couple other people are going to get together and try to put together a real nice path. Sorry, John, I haven't talked to you about this yet, and we've spoken probably 3 times since, but
I'm in.
I love that guy. And so here we are. And so what I want to do is just take a second. It'll take about 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I want to read. I'm not going to read the resolution because we are really backed up to time. Y'all have a copy. It's on the agenda, the back side. Y'all have it. Read it. And I really encourage you to talk to your school board members and to try to affect change. And the other thing I want to really truly emphasize is for you to consider running for your school board or your town select board, because we need those offices too to really put the thinking out there. Because the people are here. The people are in our communities. We just got to reach them, and we're not reaching them. We're all doing a lot of great work, but we need to be working in concert, working together. Real quick before I move on, this Saturday, Roy and Kelly Spalding have their Turn Vermont Red event in Ludlow. If you want to know more, it's on our Facebook, but Roy, wave your hand, Roy and Kelly. And they'd be more than happy to talk to you folks a little bit. Love to get you all to come on down to Ludlow. It's a beautiful community, beautiful event. I'll be speaking, John will be speaking, Senator Williams will be speaking, and there's a lot of other minority leader, Beck will be there. So I'm going to, at this point, turn this over for our first speaker, Mike Tagliavia. Where's Michael? There he is. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I just want to introduce, I don't know if I need this.
It's being recorded.
I just want to introduce my bill, which is H-89, which is a school choice bill. This is really not my bill. It's a reintroduction of what was H-405 last biennium. And I think it needs to be an important part of the conversation. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it. I'm not going to take up too much time, but I want to give you the meat of it. If I don't get through all of it, it's only 4 pages. You can find it on either my House Bio page or on the legislative page and House Bills under H-89. And the statement of purpose of bill is the bill proposes to allow all Vermont students to attend the school of the student's choice, paid for by a school choice grant issued by the Agency of Education. The school choice grant would be paid from the education fund payment otherwise due to the student's school district of residence. This bill also proposes to require the Joint Fiscal Office to issue a report with recommendations for the integration of the school choice program into Vermont's current education funding. I don't think there's going to be a problem with my voice. Policy. It shall be the policy of the state of Vermont to allow a parent and the parent's child in grades pre-K through 12 to choose which public or independent school the child shall attend regardless of the child's district of residence. And I think that's important for a lot of reasons. Independent schools, some of the independent schools in this state have been shown to be very successful. So why not let all the students in this state share in it? That's why I like this idea, and I think a lot of people do. Parental choice of school. On or before a date set by the Secretary of Education in the second semester of a school year, the parent or guardian of a student may select from a list of public or approved independent schools maintained by the Agency of Education, the school to which the parent or guardian wishes to have the parent or guardian's child attend for the coming school year, and shall notify the agency. So there is a policy. This bill would put into place a policy. so there wouldn't be any confusion, and there would be also an application so that if there is a slot open at the school, that the child will be able to get into it. And let me just read a little bit further. Acceptance of school choice. Choice of school. A Vermont public school shall accept all students whose parent or guardian has selected that school unless the school has insufficient capacity or resources. In that case, the school shall accept students who apply by lottery, but may give preferences to students whose siblings attend the school. An approved independent school may not decline to accept a student because of race, creed, color, national origin, marital status, sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. School choice grant. Upon parental selection and notification of the student's acceptance by the receiving school, the Agency of Education shall issue a school choice grant. In other words, the money for your student is going to follow your student to the school. It's not going to be taking away from other people's ability to have their child educated. It would just be a way for a student and a parent to pick whether it be a CTE, if your district does not have a CTE, to go to a CTE or any other independent school. And as far as I'm concerned, I know there are some very successful smaller religious schools, and I would not be opposed to having people have that as an option. To me, it's about whether the child, regardless of grade, is going to be successful in that grade, and when they graduate finally, will they be proficient at the grade level that they're supposed to be at. So, non-operating districts. If a district does not maintain a school for the grades it's organized to provide education for its resident students at and after the inception of the program designed in this section, the district shall continue to pay tuition for each of its resident students according to sections 821, 822 of this title until a student continuing to reside in the district completes the student's secondary education. This bill, I think, is very important right now because we're looking at a total revamp of our education system. And why not include school choice? A lot of parents are not happy. There's violence in school that has not been resolved. And we have kids who want to learn, who can't learn because they fear even going to their classrooms. And I know this because I've spoken to parents only days after I got elected. One of the first set of parents that approached me was about violence in school, and this is in an elementary school. This shouldn't be happening. When I was in school, I didn't worry about this kind of stuff. So if we want to improve our test scores for our students, and we want mom and dad to feel secure when they put their child on the bus, or if they drive their child to school themselves, that their child is getting educated and they're worrying more about the subject matter rather than their personal safety. And
thank you.
I'll let it go with that.
After all the speakers have addressed you, we'll do a Q&A, but we do have some legislators that may have to exit because they're on the floor at 1 and they probably need to get a little lunch. So without further ado, Martha Hefner from Advocates of Vermont. Thank you.
So some of you already have one of these cards, and I will probably put them over there on the corner if you didn't get one. This is about Lily Tang Williams, who ran for U.S. Senate in New Hampshire, and is an outspoken advocate for freedom issues in general. I need to start. I am speaking as Martha Hefner today. I am not speaking as a school board member today. So let me get that little clerical detail out of the way. So my background, I'm 40 years in the classroom. I've seen a lot of things, and I've been very concerned in the last 5 years especially about what's been going on in the schools, and I'm here in part to address that. In addition to my background from the school side, my father was 34 years on the school board, and so I'm well entrenched in educational kinds of concerns. My father was also the chairman of the Civil Rights Commission back when I was about 10 years old. And so that meant I was well entrenched with all the different things that were going on with Martin Luther King and his I Have Dreams. My father was there for the I Have Dreams speech. And so when I started hearing things about BLM here in Vermont, my bristles were up. Because it didn't make sense to me that Vermont, which was the first to abolish slavery in 1777, was being thrown into the same boat with everybody else all across the country. We have I looked this up immediately. I went to the wallstreet247.com website, and they're the ones that keep track of all these demographics. And they said we had 1.2% blacks. They had a higher educational attainment rate than the whites. And they had the same 50K-ish range for their median income. Why were we, as Vermonters, listening to any of the information that the BLM crowd was trying to pull over on us? And in peace, that's a part of what I want to comment on. I grew up in Michigan, and I've worked in other places as well, and I've been 20 years now in the Vermont school systems as well. And I find Vermont schools to be the friendliest of all that I've encountered. But it's in part because we do put a lot of one-on-one kind of people in situations, and it's also because, we do have those low classroom sizes. And that's not the whole picture. Another picture is about a superintendent power that we have in our systems that need to perhaps be toned down so that they're governing a larger base. All of those are different ways where the dollars are going into education that maybe should be really evaluated. And I'm not going to call the shots. That's for you, the people. And in that, I want to say, you, the people of Vermont, need to be more alert and more informed. And you can't just, when I first came here, the first principal that I worked under, she said, Vermonters do everything just with a little yeah, and a handshake in the barn. And they don't really dig to find out and know. And they let the legislators do what they want because they're the ones in charge of governing the people. No, the people are in charge of governing the people. And if we stop speaking up, we let them do whatever they want. And it's got to be you. I tried to bring Lily Tang Williams here to try and encourage people to have more conservative voices on our school boards. And there's too many places that have kind of said, no, we're just going to let them take care of us for them. You can't do that. You need to be finding people. In every school district, when I was growing up, there were room mothers. And you had people in and out of the schools volunteering, and you knew what was happening in the schools. It's much harder. I just put together a book buddy program. It's much harder to try and get volunteers to be background checked and allowed to be in there. Not that that isn't appropriate. It's very appropriate. But I'm just saying, you don't begin to see the volunteers at the schools that you used to. And it's important that we be there, and it's important that we know what's happening in our schools, and we know what's on the bookshelves in our schools, and we know what's being promoted. One of the things that I want to make sure I mention is SECUS. It's sex education for social change is what it's all about. It's been around for a long time. 1999 is what I find here, and some of its organizing members include the NEA, include the superintendents associations and things like that. This is page 2, and I'll put that over here, showing what they expect second graders to have in the way of a scope and sequence educational foundation on sex education. Now, they were quite ready. They had a gathering in New Jersey in December 23. Thousands of educators were there. And they were using the same kind of indoctrination methods that are on that little card that I showed you there, that Lily Tang Williams described. She grew up with begging for food and scavenging to find whatever scraps she could find, and finally got into the Pioneer Girls, where she finally was able to get some food. But the education methods that they were using are hail to Mao kind of instructions, and everybody had to repeat it so many times. That's the kind of education that they were using with these sex education teachers, telling them, teachers and administrators know better what's for your children than you as parents. In China, that meant her kids were sent 100 miles away, and they got to see them once a year. I am trying to sound alarms as she had. CCP is breathing on our shoulders, and we need to be awake. We need to hear more of what Ed Wheeler has to say with his Americanism Marxism Symposium. We need to be prepared to stand up and be a voice for our children.
Thank you, Martha. I'm going to pass this down to Representative Mark Higley. Mark is from the Lamoille, Orleans County, and he serves in the House. What committee, sir?
Ways and Means.
Ways and Means. So it's all your pocketbook. So thank you, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for being here, folks, and being so vigilant about understanding what goes on down here and your support for certain advocacy for whether it's homeschooling or choice or whatever. Again, I am from the Orleans Lamoille district. My only Lamoille County town is Eaton. The rest of them are up north of that along the Canadian border. I think that's important. I'm on Ways and Means this year, so the big bill that we've been working on is H454. That's the new governance and foundation formula. The foundation formula is now going to be based on a per pupil spending with a weight added for whether it's English learners or children with disabilities, those sort of things. So to me, the money is going to follow the student. So initially when Secretary Saunders put out the proposal, there was consideration for choice, especially within district, possibly outside of the new districts that might be created. And again, with making sure that there's the availability in whatever school it is, that's kind of silent in the bill that was passed. I talked to some members of the Education Committee, asked them why that was. They are hoping that when those districts do get formed, at least in the current bill, it's got a long ways to go, but when those new districts get formed, hopefully they will address that again, because I believe that's super important, that there's no reason. I mean, my wife and I, who live in Lowell, that's right on the Lamoille County border, our school that we were supposed to send our kids to was North Country. That was about 40 minutes north. My wife worked at Johnson State College, that was 30 minutes south. We had an opportunity to have our son go to Lamoille, which was only 5 minutes away from my wife. Huge implications there for our son to achieve what he was going to achieve. As a representative, I've certainly been reached out to by a number of constituents saying, hey Mark, I know I'm in Eden, but we really want our son to go to North Country for the hockey program. There was always a little wiggle room to try to get that done, but I think this particular new proposal should open that up. And then just real quick, I'd like to go over maybe if you go to the education's webpage, House Education webpage, you can find 34 bills that are currently in that committee. Some of them are certainly bad, some of them are good. I'll just give you a little flavor of some. Again, there's a bill for an income tax reduction for homeschoolers of $1,000, just to help them along a little. There's also a driver's ed for homeschoolers piece. That's been an issue to try to get driver's eds for folks that do homeschooling. An act related to cell phones, which is also in the Senate committee. We have that in the House. An act relating to prohibiting requiring face masks in school. An act relating to the closure of schools. Again, the list goes on, but if you're at all interested, take a look at some of those, advocate for some of them as best you can with your representatives, but it's a tough slog here in the House in particular to try to understand why they're so objectionable to this limited form of school choice, which is really important for parents and kids. So thank you very much for your time.
We got him clocked at 3 minutes, 49 seconds. That's pretty damn good for a politician. Thank you, Mark. Okay, our next speaker is supposed to be Marie, but do you want to go first?
Okay.
How would you want to do it? Okay, it's Marie Tinman. She is from Speak Vermont, which is an advocacy. There we go. The tongue didn't roll. A group out of Essex for the Essex Woodford School District that started, but I think we've got some other plans. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Greg, for hosting this event and inviting me to be amongst these other distinguished speakers. And thank you all for coming, taking your time to be here. And would you agree it's quite alarming that we've reached this point in our history where we have to defend parents' rights? That's already guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution. So during the past 5 years, I've witnessed a surge in parent awareness and concerns about what's happening in the classroom. Since 2020, throughout the nation, more than 375 grassroots parent groups have formed, and they're speaking out at the school board meetings and at legislative hearings to make effectual changes. Speak Vermont is a nonprofit 501c3, non-political, non-religious grassroots organization formed out of Essex by like-minded citizens who are concerned about what we saw happening in the classroom and what was being taught, with a focus on political and sexual ideologies. We believe parents should be included in all decisions about their children. Parents have the right to be included in choices of curriculum and their children's education. This event aligns with Speak's mission, which is to usher our children into an educational experience that's directed by parents as quickly as possible. We do that by investigating, informing, and advocating for students, parents, and educators to achieve an academics of merit that are free of political and sexual persuasion. We're broadening our mission beyond the Essex-Westford School District to work at the state level. The reason is that these policies come from the Vermont Agency of Education and are imposed on the local school districts. Yet across the state, isolated residences have been bravely standing up at their school districts, to the school boards, to listen and asking them to be listened to. These residents have been, this approach is just wearing them out, and they're forced to give up. So we have to band together and get to the root of the problem. I believe the education system has been an ever-increasingly ebbing away at parents' rights and responsibilities over the several years, kind of like the frog in the water. And hence, some parents have unwittingly delegated their responsibilities to the school system. The Essex-Westford School Superintendent stated that schools, rather than primarily focusing on academics, should be a one-stop shop for children, which includes medical, dental, and psychological care. We want to ensure that parents always have the fundamental right to direct the upbringing and education of their children. In contrast, the Vermont Agency of Education policy directs schools to maintain separate folders on students, one for the school and one to hide information from parents and one that's visible to parents. This practice is in violation of the Family Education Rights Privacy Act, otherwise known as FERPA. U.S. Secretary Linda McMahon of the Department of Education is strengthening the enforcement of FERPA and taking action against the school districts that are in violation of the law. Isn't that a refreshing and welcoming change from the previous administration? So furthermore, this practice of holding two separate files promotes distrust and division in the family. It is not only the fundamental right of parents to know where their children are, what they're doing, what they're reading, what they're learning, who their friends are, and how they're getting along in life while under the control of the school system. This two separate folders promotes distrust and division in the family. Sorry. And it compels children to believe political and moral views that don't align with family values. Educators should support parents when a situation needs attention rather than hiding from them. And I'm glad Martha mentioned these sex ed. So there was a sex ed conference that she references, and I'm not going to read you this, but at the bottom line, they say, therefore, parents do not have rights over their children. They believe that children belong to the community. So, don't you believe that transparency is important for all citizens of our society, and that every parent has the right to know what's happening with their child? Collaboration, communication, and trust would be strengthened between parents and the education system when information is fully disclosed. Our request to our legislators is you work to restore parents to the rightful role in educating children. Back it up with policy. For example, repeal the laws that give 12-year-olds consent to psychological or other services without a parent notice or consent. Let's not follow Colorado and other states' actions that have passed laws taking away parents' rights by criminalizing their language. So we frequently talk to people who are very concerned about the political and sexual ideologies that are being pushed in the schools, but they feel helpless to do anything. So we're banding together to share ideas, insights, and workload to be much stronger and capable. The current situation is quite fragile since it defies common sense and the natural rights of parents. This gathering gives us an opportunity to band together to get out the truth. A simple but very helpful step for you is to give us your email. You can do that on the speakvt.org website, or you can sign up with me today. And we do put out frequent newsletters, usually weekly. Tell us your ideas. We've been at this a few years. I've had some formal training, and we would be delighted to share our hard-won insights so you can skip years of trial and error. I am part of a national network too, so we look forward to supporting the efforts of our legislators and concerned citizens of Vermont in their efforts to put parents back in control of education. Will the State Agency of Education honor parents and champion their vocations as the primary caregivers, teachers, and mentors of children? Remember, parents' rights do not end at the schoolhouse door. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, the great Senator Terry Williams from the great county of Rutland.
That's kind of a tough act to follow, so I'm gonna be brief. I just want to, one of the things when I got reelected, I wanted to come back to the Education Committee. Dave Weeks is the vice chair. He's also a senator from Rutland, and we asked to be put back on that Education Committee because we knew that the bill, the governor's plan is solid. He has a vision for education in Vermont, and his secretary, Zoe Saunders, has come up with a strategic plan to get there. H.454, we haven't seen it yet in the Senate. We've basically been taking testimony for 3 months. And I'm chafing at the bit. I want to get working on this plan because my background, I'm a planner. And you give me the resources and the information and the data I need, and I can put together a plan in about 2 weeks. So we're running out of time. And, we've been having joint committee meetings with Appropriations, Finance, Ways and Means, and the House Education Committee. House Education Committee came up with a bill which basically is that they rewrote Title 16 from the way I see it. We're going to be more concise. We're hearing a lot of testimony because of the time that we've been not coming up with this plan. We've heard a lot of testimony from superintendents associations, from principals, and basically what it amounts to is that they're concerned that their small community schools are going to go away, or that we're going to consolidate and we're going to have to put kids on a bus for an hour and 30 minutes. That won't work, okay? So we know that, and we're going to work with the community, the education community as a whole. I think that I made a statement yesterday in our committee meeting You give me 52 superintendents, which we have, and put me in a room with them for 2 weeks, and we'll come up with a plan, because they know the right answers. You know, if what we've got right now isn't working, they probably know why it isn't. And we need to know where we've been in order to be able to get to where we're going. So the last thing I want to say is that I don't really have an association with Vermonters for Vermont, but I know one thing, that we've made great strides in the State House to get balance in the legislature. The education committees, they set education policy. And the Agency of Education, when that policy's done, they will do what we tell them to do, because that's what we're designed to do. But if we don't get people out to vote, and we lose more seats, we're never going to have a say. Because the majority party, they have the committee on committees, they have the majority of members that make the rules, and if they make the rules, we have to abide by them. So I want to encourage everybody that's here, everybody knows 4 or 5 people, get them, make sure they come to the polls. It doesn't have to be during the general election or during a presidential year. We need them all for the midterm too. So thank you.
Just to dovetail what the great senator from the great Rutland County said, is that we need you. We need all of us, and we all need to be talking to 10, 15, 20 people to get them involved, and to call the legislators from either side of the aisle and talk to them and give them your opinion. Let them know what you're thinking, because it's really important, because this government is about who? We the people. So it's really important. The other thing, I just want to recognize Chris Howland from Rutland City, Rutland Town, our state representative. Chris, can you say hi? And Dave Weeks was here, Senator Weeks, who's also from the great Rutland County, and a seatmate of Senator Williams was here, but he probably went out to get something to eat. And I know he said he had a meeting. Are there folks here that ran for school board or legislature in the last session? Can you just rise for a second, just to be recognized? And I know there's a lot of people here that work endlessly and doing stuff for the families of Vermont, like Speak Vermont, Phil, and Renee from Vermont Family Alliance. I know there's other groups here too, and that's important, but it's really important that we the people, stand up and be heard to protect our children. Without further ado, and it's hard to introduce this guy because he's one of a kind, my dear friend, John Clark.
But I'm not from Rutland. I'm happy to be next to some farmers, and I'm honored to be with all of you. My path in politics has brought me in contact with some wonderful people, and that extends to all of you here in the audience. I don't think George Soros has paid you to be here today, and you come anyway without a paycheck. I actually wish he would. I wish there were more people on the left here to hear what I have to say. Because as a conservative, I used to be a Democrat, and I believe the same things that I'm going to talk about today. These should not be contentious issues, as you mentioned, Bree. So I've brought some comments, and so I'll be a little controversial, okay, because I'm here to be bad cop. Vermont schools and superintendents are waging war on parents and school children using our tax dollars and our state institutions. That's what's happening. Now, that might sound a little radical, but I'm an attorney, and I'm going to make that case right now. And the case for our being here and fighting back to defend our school children from a toxic indoctrination facility. Everybody's been very nice here, and everything you've said is true. But I want to amplify it with some facts, because I've been out there talking to parents about this for years, and I know their personal stories, and I am not authorized to talk about it unless they let me off the leash, which usually they can't because they've got traumatized children to take care of, okay? And I am now allied with Alliance Defending Freedom, so I and other lawyers will connect you with lawyers across the country to have parents have representation when they can't afford it. We don't have to wait for the legislature to repeal boldly unconstitutional, disgusting laws. We can bring them to court. We'll bring them to federal court. We have a new administration. The Constitution is back. All right? So, hey, I'm just telling you the law here, and I plan to win this case for our children because that's what we're here for.
Thank you, John, for Travis Allen.
Travis Allen, where we first connected with ADF, if you're not familiar, and also more recently, a young girl in Morrisville that I will talk about who had the audacity to wear a shirt that said there are only 2 genders to school. Americans have the right and the duty to raise their own children, and that includes their education, their moral values, and their physical health. As I'm going to talk about all these things, all 3 are under bold attack by Vermont's paid government employees. They get paid. We pay them. We're not getting paid to defend our children here today. Troxel versus Granville, if you're not familiar with that case, a 2000 case, an opinion written by Sandra Day O'Connor, a great jurist, and quote from Justice O'Connor, "The liberty interest at issue in this case, the interest of parents in the care, custody, and control of their children, is perhaps the oldest of the fundamental liberty interests recognized by this court. More than 75 years ago, in Mayer versus Nebraska in 1923, we held that the liberty protected by the Due Process Clause includes the right of parents to, quote, establish a home and bring up children, unquote, and, quote, to control the education of their own." Okay, this is your right, okay? And it's important for us to stand up for children because they can't. And I can tell you, some of these children rescued from this public school system are thriving as if they've been taken out of an indoctrination camp because they have, okay? It's hard to believe, though, that Vermont teachers don't have the best interests of our children in mind. And that's why, heaven forbid Clark gets up there and says anything against the vaunted educators. But that's the thing. That is the question. Whether what teachers believe is in the best interest of children aligns with what their parents believe, okay? Because most teachers are ultra-liberal in this state. They don't want conservatives as teachers in this state. And conservative teachers are teachers who are adhering, in that name conservative, to the traditions of the past, to the Constitution, to teaching that everybody is equal regardless of skin color, race, creed, etc. They're getting booted out. They're being told they're not welcome there. I talked to the teachers. Our schools have become ideological indoctrination facilities. That's actually their priority right now, okay? And course subjects are losing out. Vermont Digger just published it. Gee, you mean math and writing and reading, they're deteriorating? Because we're spending more and more and more for poorer results in those course subjects, but more and more mental illness and anxiety in children. Let's have a look at this. Abortion and gun rights. Are those for parents to teach about or for schools to indoctrinate children about? Because I can tell you what's happening. What do you think active shooter drills are? We know that they're harmful to children. They don't prepare them to defend themselves against people with guns. They are drills to drill fear into children of guns, to condition them to be future progressive voters. What about God? Is the existence and character of God, they're calling you, brother.
I'm playing my tune.
The Creator something parents are responsible for, or do teachers perceive they should liberate children from such liberty-restricting oppressive systems to teach them the Big Bang fantasy and evolution? Big Bang Theory, by the way, has been totally debunked by modern science. If anybody wants to get away from their religion and actually look at the movement of the stars and what telescopes are showing us. But again, what about climate change and the science? It's more fear, it's more indoctrination, and actually teaching children to hate themselves for destroying the planet. And by the way, even if we were warming the planet, EVs and solar panels are destroying us and filling our rivers and our children up with toxic chemicals. That needs to be told, not this carbon dioxide only monotony. We're dumbing people down. How about gender ideology? Gender dysphoria we hear about. What about species dysphoria? Do I get to be a centipede? Do I get public money so I can get all free shoes for all 2,000 of my feet? We're laughing. But this is mental illness according to every measure. And every time you hear about gender dysphoria, just ask, well, what's the difference between that and species dysphoria? And I'm a dog or a kitty cat. We are not benefiting children by telling them that they could be whatever species and whatever gender they want, and that there's a rainbow of genders and they can change throughout the day, okay? Right now, in Coventry, Vermont, in the public school, 3 transgender paraeducators have been inflicting their gender ideology on elementary school children, yelling at them, telling them what pronouns they will call them. And several families have pulled their kids out. And then what? They have to pay for private school as well as the public school they're paying for? Because we're paying these transgender people and we're told by the superintendent there that they have a right to speak. Not in school, not to my children, not about the sexual perversions that Martha dared hold up the list of. I will blush. I learned about stuff in sexuality I didn't even know existed as a 60-year-old until I read what they're teaching kids in second grade. Okay? And as a parent, who decides when a child is going to be taught about sexuality? Not just homosexuality, heterosexuality, any of it. Kids don't need to know about this stuff. Oh, but we have to liberate them. Marriage is bad too, you know. It's all because of the patriarchy. Guess what? There are only two genders. That's the science, that's the chromosomes. Speaking of that, I mentioned the Morrisville school that punished a 13-year-old girl for wearing a shirt. This is a free speech issue now, it's First Amendment now, saying there are only two genders. The parents hired a lawyer, I helped, and now the school superintendent and the school attorney both said in the news recently that the child was never disciplined for doing that. Yes, this child was shamed and disciplined and told she was hateful, put in an isolation room, and now they're lying. The lawyer, Pietri, I forget his name, Lynn, is lying to the public in the media and saying that they try to enforce free speech rights and protect everyone's free speech rights. No, they didn't, and they're lying when they say they didn't discipline this child. I'll be writing about that in the national news because they need to be held accountable because they're getting paid by our tax dollars to indoctrinate children, torture a 13-year-old, boast about it privately, and then lie to the public about it. Why do they lie? Because they're covering up the truth, because they know it's wrong. And that's why you're all here today. Liberal or conservative, this is wrong. And it's going on in our schools, in Vermont particularly, and in this legislature. And these children are being punished. It happened to an 8-year-old under Lane Millington when he said, oh, that girl ran 3 laps. Go to the principal's office right now. That 3rd grade girl is a boy. How dare you call? This is sick. And where is the science? And we're told that we're starting a culture war by challenging a culture war, a war on our culture, a war on our traditions, a war on science. But we're the culture warriors? Nobody talked to the parents about this. Nobody talked to the parents about keeping a separate medical record for children so you could hide their new name from their parents. Okay? Can you imagine being a basketball coach, as I've talked to one, who has to call a child one name at basketball games, the dead name, so mom and dad don't find out, and privately everybody has to call the kid another name. Oh, and the child may change their gender next week or throughout the day. Who's standing up to this if you're not? That's why I'm here. Queer theory is being taught in schools. By the way, notice it's a theory. Anybody remember science? It's not a law. It starts as a theory. Kindergartners are being taught about this stuff. They're taught about gender orientation. They're taught about which genders they could be. Sex education, we mentioned it. You'd be astonished. I can't even read it to you. The book Gender Queer, by the way, includes, we ran across it in the library one day at a Republican meeting in Chelsea, and there it was. And I opened it up, started passing it around. It shows oral sex between minors. Under the statute, I can tell you as a lawyer, this is child pornography. Oh, but there's an exception when schools give it out. But if you or I question this book for a kindergartner, oh, we're book banning now. That's gaslighting, okay? They're gaslighting us and they're lying. So that's the goal. Read The Marxification of Education by James Lindsay, okay? They want to break children down. They want to separate them from their parents' values. Drag Queen Story Hour is not to teach children about tolerance or how to read better. It's the opposite. It's to teach them about how to break down those parental values, create a new utopian society. It's going to be so wonderful. We already see the harms being done. Racism. The schools teach that Vermont is systemically white racist and that white people are intrinsically supremacists, and that black people are marginalized victims. What a lovely thing to teach black children. Don't learn math, it's racist. Gee, if you have to spell words and put together a sentence, that's just racism. Don't do that. Let's prepare you for a merit-based world where you don't know anything. We'll hire you for DEI, to be traffic controllers, all right? Superintendent John Castle, when he was a superintendent in the Northeast Kingdom, was shaming parents and children for saying that critical race theory was being taught. And he stood up at a meeting and he said, we don't teach critical race theory. No, you apply it to children. The BLM flag is part of it. You do it to children, okay? You're judging young children for being white and telling them that they're racist even though their parents maybe raising them under Martin Luther King, who's being trashed by this, and Frederick Douglass and others who fought, who were actual slaves. All right, and by the way, I want to mention this book right here. I just finished this book by Coleman Hughes, The End of Race Politics, Arguments for a Colorblind America. Oh, colorblind. Read this book. He's a black writer. It's okay. You see, we're going to listen to black marginalized voices unless they agree with the other. I don't even know that he's a conservative. John McWhorter from The Atlantic is another great writer I recommend. So, I only need 20 more minutes. You know, I ran through it. It was faster, but I have to talk slow. You know, we paid for this, and I just want to say we need to homeschool children. Studies are showing there's a homeschool movement around the world, around the England, Australia, Kenya, Japan. People are starting to do it to protect their children from the bullying and dangers that were mentioned, I think, by Mike, from being physically bullied. Black children score higher on SAT and other tests if they are homeschooled. And in England in particular, it's being called an anxiety crisis. They need to get these children out. I have a whole list of statistics about why. And our Education Secretary, Zoe Saunders, just said that she was going to defy President Trump's directive to adhere to the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution. All right, and the last one I want to point out is you have right over your children's health care decisions, and that includes hormone blockers. Don't take it away from me, I'm almost done. Just because I'm not from Rutland, you know. So I'm about to, thanks to a donor, have a series of radio ads all over the state telling parents, you have a right to decide whether your child gets a vaccine, an HPV vaccine, hormones, blockers. I don't care what the Vermont statutes say to protect medical care providers who give medicines to children. Okay? This is criminal in my view. And I ask you to tell people, I'll be in the ad, I'll be doing it's going to be in rock music, jazz music, talk show, everything, with a website where people can go, and I will connect them with a lawyer so that we can evaluate their cases, so that they can stand up with a lawyer behind them to speak truth to power. And that's why you're all here. God bless you all. Thank you so much for coming.
Only 14 minutes, that's okay.
Was it really
That's
that
why I
long?
had him at the end, but you know, the representatives, you saw the senator had to leave. I'm sure you all have questions, but I don't think we're going to be able to get there. I want to invite everybody to go up to the cafeteria. There's great food, priced right. Come on up, and I'm not buying, neither is the representative. Maybe the senator, that's why he ran. But come on up, and we can all talk amongst ourselves and ask questions. I'm sure John, Marie, and Martha will join us, and maybe the
I
representative.
got nothing else to say, really.
But thank you all very
Sorry
much.
about that.
God bless you all. Thank you. Agatha,
John, thank you. You said it better, boy.
So I didn't realize I went that far over.
You were fine.
Take a picture of it, it's great. Katie Faust, you know Katie Faust? Look up Katie Faust, them before us.
Okay.
I am.